What's Trump's closing argument right now? Last night on his COVID spreader tour, he's going around spreading COVID. He's like a carrier because he cares more about having big crowds than he does about keeping people safe.
In the high-stakes, high-wire act of modern American entertainment and politics, there is no spectacle more electrifying than a head-on clash between unshakable power and unfiltered truth. And this week, that collision didn't unfold in a courtroom. It erupted under the bright lights of the late-night stage on Jimmy Kimmel Live. For decades, Donald Trump has meticulously commanded his own narrative, steamrolling critics with the sheer force of his personality and the improving claim that he holds an Einstein-level intellect. He has intimidated opponents, drowned out critics, and constructed a political empire on the unwavering assertion that he is always the smartest man in the room, frequently boasting of an IQ of 1 to 65. But what happens when that legend is put to the test? What happens when a late-night host, someone Trump has repeatedly brushed off as a low-rated clown and a fool, decides to stop delivering punchlines and start demanding real answers?
And a former governor, and we're winning by a lot. But they come down to North Carolina, not thinking about North Carolina, and every single time they come back, they say, Mr. Trump, that's where I want to spend the rest of my life. True story. 5 guys.
The title of this story captures that exact moment of breathtaking televised accountability. Trump challenged him on IQ. Jimmy Kimmel dismantled his ego in 6 seconds. In a segment destined to be replayed for generations, Kimmel called the former president's bluff live on Jimmy Kimmel Live. And in a flash of raw, unscripted television, he pulled apart a 40-year-old claim so deeply woven into Donald Trump's identity that it left the former president frozen, stunned in a moment of pure, unfiltered shock before the entire world. The night had started like any other, but something in the studio felt different. Charged, electric, anticipating impact. As Trump settled into his chair for what he assumed would be a sparring match he could effortlessly control.
Because you're a genius, you're not going to disavow. Do we agree? Only a stupid person would disavow, not a genius. No genius would disavow being called a genius. Why would I disavow? Guy calls you a genius. Is anybody going to disavow? We don't disavow. And my Republican opponents said, you have to repute.
He wasted no time going on the offensive, his face flushed with the fire of the campaign trail, leaning in to declare, Jimmy, honestly, you're a lightweight. I have a very high IQ, one of the highest. The doctors, they said, sir, we've never seen a brain like this. I dare you to take a test with me right now. We'll see who the real genius is. The audience gasped at the boldness of the challenge, but Jimmy Kimmel didn't blink. Instead, his expression shifted from genial host to a man holding a royal flush. An IQ test, Kimmel repeated, his voice steady, almost dangerously calm. That's an interesting proposal, Mr. President. I'm perfectly willing to take one. But in the spirit of full transparency, before we sit for a new test, maybe we should take a look at the old ones. Don't you think? The studio fell into a crushing silence as Kimmel reached beneath his desk and lifted out a thick, sealed government file. The heavy thud of paper hitting wood echoed like a gunshot in the stillness. Donald Trump's confident smirk wavered for the very first time, a flash of real confusion flickering across his eyes. My team didn't just write jokes this week, Kimmel continued, his tone controlled and precise. We did some digging. We went into the archives, and we uncovered a certified copy of a federal cognitive aptitude screening from May 1981, a document you've spent a considerable amount of money trying to keep buried. Trump shifted in his seat, eyes darting toward his aides off camera, but it was already too late. The trap had closed. Kimmel slowly put on his reading glasses, deliberate, unhurried, stretching the tension to its breaking point. You claim an IQ of 165, Kimmel said as he opened the file. You claim to be a genius. But this document, signed by the chief psychometrician of the era, tells a very different story. He looked up, locking eyes with Trump. It says here that your score was an 86. The number hovered in the air. 86. A score statistically below average. A score that fractures the myth of the stable genius into 1,000 shards. For exactly 6 seconds, the world seemed to stop. Donald Trump, the man who always has a comeback, the man who never stops talking, stood utterly, completely speechless. His mouth opened, but no words followed. The color drained from his face, leaving him pale and hollow. It was the silence of a man watching his entire self-image dissolve in real time. The audience didn't laugh. They sat frozen, absorbing the shock of the moment. Kimmel pressed on. "And the rest of this file," he added, tapping the folder, "contains the receipts. The wire transfers to doctors. The pressure placed on schools. The 4-decade campaign you financed to manufacture the illusion of an intellect that simply doesn't exist." What followed was total unraveling. Trump stammered, dismissed it as fake news, then finally pushed back a chair and moved to storm off, but the damage had already been done. In 6 seconds, Jimmy Kimmel hadn't merely won a debate. He had pulled back the curtain on the Wizard of Oz, revealing that the so-called genius was nothing more than a man terrified the world might discover he was, in fact, ordinary.